Hey, and welcome back to another first look episode of a cool sci-fi game yet to be released, where we take a look at gameplay, story and general feel so you can decide if it belongs on your wish list. And today that game is Star Wars Outlaws, which hopes to set a new standard for Star Wars games with an almost cinematic experience. Announced on January 13th, 2021, Outlaws aims to provide an immersive Star Wars adventure. Now it's going to be a completely open world game, striving to give you this undeniable sense of freedom in a galaxy far, far away. When looking at open world games as a genre, the most successful ones aren't based solely on pretty scenery or the freedom that you can go wherever you want. It's much more complicated. Because what keeps people booting up these games from their library is any good combination of a compelling story and gameplay loop. And let's not forget that the world itself needs to incentivize you to go and explore, so encountering interesting places to visit and as a player have a meaningful way to shape the story that you're in. At first glance it seems Outlaws has the right elements in place to enable all of that. In Star Wars Outlaws it's all about your reputation. Without it you have nothing. So the choices that you make in the game, from what quests you accept to how you converse with others, make an actual difference in how your story progresses. You can actually make different dialogue decisions which will have a standing impact, either positive or negative, on the faction that you're talking to, which will ultimately determine being kept from or presented with certain opportunities, such as high-risk, high-reward missions. Having a negative reputation with any syndicate will have its consequences, but don't underestimate the Empire, because this is where the wanted system feature comes into play. Outlaws takes place between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, so the Empire is still running the show and at the height of its power. If you keep on annoying them long enough, your wanted level will increase, resulting in the Empire assigning more and more resources to apprehend or neutralize you. But don't worry, as there will always be ways to de-escalate the system, making sure that your game doesn't become unplayable or annoying. A lot will revolve around the stealth and gunplay, and we can already see some great examples of that, such as your companion Nyx, a species called Murkol who will be by your side and can help you during your adventures. As you can see here, he can be given different tasks depending on the environment, allowing for some puzzle gameplay trying to sneak or find your way through a particular area. Now this feature seems to enable you to complete missions or overcome certain obstacles in more than one way, which in turn gives you some replayability options. You can interact with the environment, hanging onto crates and using grappling hooks to move between building levels or cross gaps in the environment. Another cool feature is Kay's blaster itself. Throughout your adventures, you'll come across different modules for your weapon to enhance or upgrade it with by using a workbench to increase its performance. As you can tell, Kay will have a lot of options at her disposal during any given situation, which is something at the center of design for Outlaws, giving you flexibility in your approach on how to solve problems or handle firefights. As you progress through the game, you'll gain new actions and abilities, essentially reflecting Kay growing into and learning how to become a better outlaw. I think everything that I just talked about shows that a lot of familiar mechanics from other games are present in Outlaws, because I'm seeing a mix of Assassin's Creed and Jedi Survivor, but we haven't seen any details yet on the loot system to know how elaborate or straightforward that is, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was something similar to Survivor. Now I doubt there will be item sets involved, but perhaps some tiered system like in The Division 2 would be cool. You'll play as Kay Vess, a new and upcoming scoundrel who still has to prove herself worthy of becoming a recognized member of the underworld.
You want to survive? Know the players.
You're new to this world.
What's your problem?
Come back when you're not.
She has a rocky start, having made herself an enemy of Sliro, the leader of a new but very resourceful crime syndicate called Zarek Besh. Now he seems like an interesting villain, already having been very rich, and then he decided to go start a crime syndicate. But Kay had a job for Zarek Besh go sideways, very reminiscent of Han Solo dumping Jabba's contraband during a transport gig, and Kay also ends up with a huge bounty on her head. Now the journey to freedom begins with her encountering Jalen, a character of questionable motives who offers her a way out by having her rob Sliro of his fortune and then buy her freedom.
Rob his fortune and buy your freedom.
This job, it's a death wish.
Now Jalen recognizes a certain set of skills within Kay, so he recruits her in the sense of a mentorship. Fliro is not sitting still either, because he sees the opportunity to what looks like try and unite some of the larger underworld factions.
Pikes, Crimson Dawn, Huts. It's a golden age for the underworld. The Empire controls every corner of the galaxy, but they're distracted by a rebellion that won't quit.
Kay obviously seizes the opportunity to become free, but also recognizes that she needs help in order to pull this off.
But if we're gonna pull this off, we need the right crew.
So alongside a good story, we can count on some pretty solid and proven mechanics in the game as well. But what about the level of immersion and replayability? Now, Outlaws promises us a truly unique Star Wars experience, and clearly a lot of work has gone into creating and designing unique worlds and environments where we can feel like we're part of it all. How well that is achieved will be determined by how believable or immersive the game is, and how to better give you a Star Wars vibe than by including Death Troopers, AT-STs and TIE Fighters and lots of other familiar Star Wars species. One thing's for sure, there will be no shortage of recognizable locations and features. Of course, when you say Star Wars, you're thinking of space battles at one point or another and traveling across planets in some iconic vehicle. What we saw a little earlier, the Trailblazer, is Kay's home. It's a Republic-era light freighter and it allows you to travel across the galaxy. Space also promises to be a very engaging part of the game, from dogfights to large space battles, but also some exploration and discovery. Being an open world game with spaceflight, a near seamless way of traveling from the planet's surface to outer space will be a minimum requirement most players will be asking for nowadays, and Massive Entertainment clearly understood this, because the game makes use of some loading screens, but they're all disguised as small cutscenes. Now that makes it into one ongoing experience. And I think that alone makes a huge difference for immersion and feeling like you're really part of a larger galaxy out there far, far away. As to be expected from a Star Wars title this day and age, graphics wise the game has nothing to complain about at the surface level, judging from these trailers made possible by the Snowdrop game engine. Now if you've played or seen Avatar, Frontiers of Pandora or The Division 2, then you have an idea what this engine is capable of, but as always, we'll have to wait until release to see how the looks hold up underneath that surface as opposed to polished trailers. Now audio-wise, since every Star Wars game publisher is licensed by Lucasfilm Games, developers can count on all the source material that they need, which includes original audio files, so we could be hearing a lot of authentic and familiar sounds. But something that really stands out already is the soundtrack. Back when Rogue One came out in cinemas, I still remember watching the opening scenes and I really had to get used to the music not being by John Williams, who has, in my opinion, undeniably defined Star Wars on a musical level. But hearing the soundtrack underneath the trailer or trailers, it really gives off a Star Wars vibe with a very nice arrangement of the main theme, but in a more dramatic key. Now, if the atmospheric background tracks are just as good, then I think we're in for an audible treat.
Fighting for their piece of the galaxy. But all I want is to live free.
I just mentioned the Avatar and Division games because those titles have been developed by the same studio that's working on Outlaws, Massive Entertainment, with Ubisoft as a publisher. Now let me be clear, I don't want to get into a lot of details about some of the controversies that are already going around on the internet because of Ubisoft being Ubisoft, needing an internet connection for installation and the pricing, because this video needs to be about giving you a first overview of the game. But I do want to make a distinction here. Now I know you might not agree with me what I'm about to say next, because I know a lot of you feel that having Ubisoft as a publisher already influenced your perception of the game, and in a negative way. And if that's you, I get it, I understand, but hear me out. I believe that this game can be great with the emphasis on the game. Not because of the price you pay for it, not because you are hesitant to try it out because of Ubisoft DLC shenanigans, but purely based on the game's content and what kind of experience it's trying to offer you. So what I want to do for you guys is try and give you as good as an overview and details on the game before, during and after release, so you can decide if this is for you before you have to start worrying about, value for money or how publisher politics affects the game in any way. So what do we pay for this game? The game is available for pre-order and you can choose from 3 different versions, starting with the standard version containing the base game and a cosmetic pack as a pre-order bonus, costing you $70 US or euros or £60 when you're in the UK. Then there's the gold edition for $110 or £95, followed by the ultimate edition at $130 or £115. Now the gold edition gets you 3 days of early access and the season pass, which is Ubisoft's marketing label for DLC, which in this case consists of 2 future DLCs, a Jabba the Hutt exclusive mission, and a cosmetic pack for Kay and Nix. For a second price increase, we arrive at the Ultimate Edition, giving you 2 extra cosmetic packs for Kay, Nix and the Trailblazer plus a digital art book. Is any version above standard worth it? I'll pre-order the gold edition so I can show you guys the contents of the season pass in a dedicated video on whether or not the upgrade is worth it. So be sure to check that out after release here on the channel. Let me know your thoughts on Star Wars Outlaws in a comment and leave a like to support the video. This is also the perfect time to subscribe because I will continue to keep you up to date with previews and gameplay details on Outlaws and other great sci-fi games. Speaking of which, click here if you're into creating large interstellar empires, or click here if you want to have some co-op FPS fun with a twist. And that's all for this first look video. Thank you for watching and have fun gaming.